Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amyr Rocha-Lima.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast is brought to you by Holland Hahn Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Hahn Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. I'm joined today by Leah Seymour. Leah is the founder of Paws In The Woods, offering dog walking and pet sitting services in Surbiton and the surrounding areas. What's unique about Leah is how she's built a service model that caters for everything from group dog walks to something more quiet for the pooch who prefers their own company. And be sure to listen to the end, where Leah shares with us some tips on how to keep your dog stimulated and entertained. So whether you're interested in knowing more about dog walking and pet sitting, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast.
Welcome, Leah Seymour, to the Inside Kingston Podcast. Leah, I'm really excited about this conversation because, well, for a lot of people, if they could design their perfect job, I think it would look something like spending their days walking through the Surrey countryside surrounded by dogs. So I'm really keen to hear more about your story. And also, I'm sure our listeners can learn a lot from your experience in this area. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. So Leah, where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in Surbiton.
Cool, local girl.
Yes, I am. I was born in Kingston. I lived in Thames Ditton when I was younger, but majority of my life has been in Surbiton.
Very cool. And what did you study after sort of secondary schooling?
After secondary school, I actually went into makeup artistry.
Oh, wow.
I was learning how to do makeup, like special effects on film sets and movies, things like cool. That. It's the road I was heading down.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really interesting. And could you tell us a little bit about your career journey before you set up your business?
So I did a little bit of retail. I worked in a supermarket at one point. Then I actually was a working makeup artist for a while. Then I ended up working in a private investigators in an office.
So cool.
And then I fell into the dog walking from there, and I've been doing that ever since.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. And I bet you saw some stories at that private investigator's office, which I won't put you on the spot for.
Yes, I did.
Cool. So Leah, bringing this conversation to the present, could you tell us a little bit about your business today?
So today I run the business 7 days a week, I'd say at the moment. I just do dog walking and pet sitting currently. It's my full-time job. I spend all of my days walking through the woods in the local parks, picking up and dropping off people's doggies.
That is so cool. And as I said at the top of the show, I'm sure that seems idyllic to a lot of people if they were to be able to say what they would like to do for a living. And there's quite a few threads in there that I'd like to sort of pull with you throughout this conversation. And I guess to kick off, Leah, would you mind describing to our listeners what does sort of a day in the life of a dog walker look like for you?
So I wake up in the morning. I try and not check the weather because it can put me off. I try and work in 3 main walks a day. So I'll start in the morning, go around and do my first pickups, round up the doggies, take them off to my first woodland or park, and we walk for an hour to an hour and a half. I take them home, I'll have a little break, and then I do it all over again.
Fantastic. And I guess there's just so much about it that is interesting. And as you said, okay, weather aside, at times that can be a little off-putting. But with dog owners, I remember my dad telling me when I was young and we got a puppy. He said, Amyr, from this point onwards, in the morning, you're going to look outside the window, not to check whether you will or won't be taking the dog for a walk. It's just what clothes you need to wear, basically. Yeah, that's it now. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That does mean that, doesn't it? But what do you most love about your job as a dog walker and a pet sitter?
Oh, it's the most rewarding thing, because no matter if you're having a good day, a bad day, it doesn't matter if it's storming outside, the dogs are so happy to see me. And the owners as well, having someone they trust and that I've built a long-lasting relationship with is so rewarding. It's honestly the best part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm sure that you must get to see some pretty amusing dog adventures. What are some of the funniest memories you have of your dog walks?
Oh, last summer, this always comes to mind first. I had a dog she's got bad arthritis in her back legs, but she chose to follow the other doggies into the river. So I had to climb down the riverbank using the tree roots and get someone to help me hoik her back up the side of the bank. That was pretty amusing last year, but it was a hot day, so I didn't mind.
I bet internally she was laughing at you, really. That's what was happening. And good on her for giving it a go as well. That's what I say. Now, obviously, you get to work with and meet many different dogs, and I'm sure there are many different personalities to those many different dogs as well. Does it ever sort of descend into chaos at times when, you try to herd sort of an excitable pup for their walk?
I have had the occasion where I'll have a new dog or puppy that I don't quite fully know their personality yet. And it's come to the time where the walk is coming to an end and they don't want to come back on the lead. So you end up playing a game of cat and mouse until you can capture them.
That's really cool. And I think this speaks loudly to the sort of service that you offer, which is, it's not like those pictures that, definitely were circulating the internet a few years ago, where you would have a lady sort of, let's say, in New York with 10, 15 dogs on a lead, walking them around Central Park. It's a different mindset, isn't it?
It's completely different. And there are people local that do take bigger groups. They have bigger vans, they have their own land. But I prefer to keep things small and really personal. I really like to treat all the dogs as if they're my own.
Yeah, and I bet that's it. I bet you're the mama to, I don't know, many, many dogs with those different personalities, which makes that variety super exciting. That's really, really cool. Leah, allow me to switch gears on you slightly, if I may, because we originally connected through Instagram. Yes. And I noticed that you regularly add tips there for your audience on, how to keep their dog stimulated and entertained. Could you perhaps share some of your favorite tips with our listeners today?
I've just got for a doggy that I've been working with. I don't know if you've heard of it or other people have heard of it, but there are these things called snuffle mats.
Okay, I don't think I have.
It's like I don't even know how you'd explain it. It's like loads of small pieces of fabric all stitched together, and you can hide treats inside of them.
Oh wow.
And all my dogs have been loving those at the moment. You can get all different types, hide all sorts of different treats in there, and they have to work through it to dig the food out. They're a favourite at the moment.
And I guess that's what it's all about, isn't it, Leah? To a certain extent, sometimes, especially, busy families, kids at school, parents, okay, today working from home, but, it might be that in the near future, it's back to some form of a commute, at least a few days a week. It's important to try to think of simple things that can create that stimulation for 30, 40 minutes with a dog and really entertain them as well. And it doesn't take much. I mean, like a new toy like you described, I guess there are all sorts of games one can do with sort of ice cubes or ice lollies, so to speak, dog-friendly ones, of course. And I guess that speaks volume to it, isn't it? So sometimes, if you don't have a lot of space, you don't have a lot of time, there's still little things that you can tap into, I guess, the dog walking community, Leah's Instagram, and just find things that will keep your dog entertained, even for sort of those short bursts of time. So that's really interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's really cool. And just really interesting the way it just obviously comes out that you have a lot of fun with obviously what is a job and something that you take very seriously, but still it's an environment that allows you to have fun and to smile with the dogs as well, I guess.
I honestly do think it's the best job in the world.
Very cool. Leah, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
Do you know what? Running my own business has made me realize how much work truly goes into it. You never have a day off. You have to be consistent. I feel like consistency is key. And my biggest tip is to just start. I feel like you can make plans and you can read self-help books, but at one point you're just going to have to start and make the first step. And once you begin and put consistency alongside it, I do believe it will begin to snowball.
I'm a big fan of consistency as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen the benefits of that in my own professional life, even if the effort at times didn't feel like it was that grand as the plan I had in my head. Just the consistent step by step, one foot in front of the other each day, definitely paid dividends. So I second that strongly. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
I would probably say when I got my van last year, I saved up, bought the van because I had a smart car before that, which obviously didn't fit my in. And I had all my sign writing put on the outside and my cages put in the back. So I say so far that's probably my proudest moment.
It's interesting, Leah, because I get that impression from your branding throughout. So, of course, your van with your signage on it, your website, I don't know if you built it yourself or you got it commissioned, but it speaks to the feeling that for sure is coming across to our listeners in this conversation as well. So I'm guessing you're mindful of how your branding puts a perception of your business out to the world throughout that whole journey. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. And I really enjoy that aspect of the business as well. I enjoy that just as much.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And Leah, what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
I've recently began learning how to train dogs. I'm starting with puppies. It's going to be a work in progress. There's so much to learn, but I'm hoping by the end of the year, I'll have enough knowledge under my belt to begin doing some puppy classes in the local area.
Oh, wow. That sounds really, really interesting. Something to look out for.
And who doesn't want to be in a room full of puppies?
Oh, gosh, absolutely. That makes the dog life even more pleasurable when it's all little puppies. Gosh, don't tell my daughter that. She'll want to join the class just to interrupt the whole thing. As we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So, Leah, what do you do to relax outside of the office, as it were?
Do you know what? Even though I walk all day, every day, I love walking. I love finding new places to walk. Eating out when we're allowed. I'm a massive foodie. My favourite restaurant in the local area has to be the Grey Horse for a roast on a Sunday.
Very nice.
And again, the gym when we're allowed. I love going to the gym as well. I'm into fitness. And
I think, Leah, that a lot of people that have been on the show recently and just my clients and even friends in the area, they've all, it pretty much is across the board, all have taken a new love to walking and especially sort of long walks in the area. Any particular favorite walks that you'd like to share with us?
Where was I the other day? Home Park, just over Kingston Bridge.
Just by our office, really.
I really love it there.
It's really nice. You're absolutely right. Are there any books that you've recently read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I read a book called The Power of Now. That was my most recent read, which is all about the law of attraction. That was amazing, actually. I think I'll end up rereading that in the future.
That's a great tip. And are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you would recommend to our listeners?
I have just started The Crown after all the drama that's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been amazing so far, but I'm not very far into it just yet.
If nothing else, it's just a great filmography. I mean, it really does suck you in terms of the fairy tale around the monarchy and everything else.
Yeah, definitely. It really does.
Very cool. And finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business? So
I'm on Instagram at Paws in the Woods _Surrey. I'm on Facebook at /Paws in the Woods, and my website is pawsinthewoodssurrey.co.uk.
And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure that I add these links to the show notes. Leah, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.